All right, we're back here with Vladimir Shafranov for part two. Part one, we talked about all of Vladimir's new records and recordings and some of his old recordings. Part two here, we're going to discuss, I think would be interesting to discuss, Vladimir, is the importance of jazz tradition, the importance of jam sessions, and then we'll talk about schools. And because I think this is, I got into a back and forth with this guy in England, Andy Edwards,
Right.
on creativity and how basically he thinks that people that are playing standards, they're just doing the same old thing. It's boring. Everybody's copying everybody. There's no creativity, which I completely disagree with. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The importance of tradition, even if you're gonna play, like I always use John Coltrane as an example. He studied formal education. He looked at classical music for creativity. He looked to tradition, and then even when he was making a lot of the modern stuff that he was doing, he was also making like ballad records and more straight ahead stuff. At the same time, he was doing new stuff almost. So he saw the importance of learning tradition, even if he was taking it in completely different directions. So let's talk about that. Talk about the standards and why people think that people playing standards is just boring or people should quit doing it.
Well, I don't. There's people who saying those things are idiots, so I don't put any kind of importance of what they say. Everything is tradition. Your father and mother teach you how to eat, how to walk, how to do anything, how to speak correct English, whatever, So music is not different. You learn the rules, you learn, and you're doing it as well as you can in your own way. But you follow the logical. I mean, you can do crazy things. Start eating dinner in the morning and breakfast at night, and get up in the middle of the day and go to sleep. You can do crazy things if you want to, but there's got to be a logic to anything. And as far as this is so ridiculous about playing standards. It's like saying that you shouldn't be playing Bach or Chopin or Beethoven anymore.
Yeah, well, these same people criticize that too. They say that classical music is
okay.
dead.
It's okay to criticize. That's we live in democratic society. They have a right to say stupid things.
Yeah.
And mark themselves as complete idiots. That's okay. I mean, we know that well, in my case, I play standard songs. I don't even want to call them standard songs. We're playing those things because they are gems of American culture. For the most part, American things. These are beautiful composers that wrote some fantastic tunes, and we need to play them. People need to hear them because of all the trash that they hear otherwise, day and night. I mean, unless they live in Japan, which in Japan they play jazz everywhere. We went before, just to bring the previous part about Japan into this conversation. Just before I left, we went to airport with my drummer, and we went to have final sushi dinner. So we're sitting in a sushi restaurant, and as many years that I have been in Japan, I'm still shocked. We're sitting in a regular sushi restaurant, delicious food, of course. But then I hear Kenny Dorham is playing on the. After that, Jackie McLean. After that, some other Blue Note things. They're not just playing even if you think about jazz things, they're not playing some latest thing. They're not playing some fusion. They're playing the jewels. Somebody understands to create the program that has this classics of American jazz, and to have it in a Japanese restaurant. And many times I was in a supermarket in Japan and I hear jazz played anywhere, in any cafe. You hear jazz played all over the place. So, but we don't live in Japan. So for the most part, people hear trash, I have to say. So I think it's our duty to play also good tunes. I'm not saying anything against people that play original tunes. If they good tunes, whoever composed them, it's good. You know, I don't even understand why is it has to be some kind of dilemma between playing traditional things and playing newer things. I don't find there is any contradiction. As you say, Coltrane, he played. Well, we don't need to say Coltrane was in the tradition because he was the tradition. He came up playing with Johnny Hodges' band and Earl Bostic, and playing swing and blues, rhythm and blues things, playing with Jimmy Smith, the organist, and then coming to Miles Davis' band that played mostly standards, you know, but
Right.
the church tunes, you know. So, and then he went his own way. And that's the way we used to have in jazz music. People are following the tradition, but they're finding their own voice in the tradition, and combining the influences.
Right.
It's like Patek Philippe watch, the watchmaker in Switzerland. They get the best parts from all other Swiss watchmakers to put inside. The best elements of everything goes into that watch. So, you know, that's the way I think about the music. You put all the best elements that you've been listening to and try to put it into, at least I try to put it into my music. All kinds of best things that I found in other people's playing. And I think I will do it, I continue to do it as long as I can. You know, you don't live isolated. You follow the tradition in anything you do. If it's going to be any good, you know, you have to follow the masters. And the people who feel it's not creative, well, sometimes it may not be as creative as something else, but it's still a good music. You know? So that's important to me more than being original or being creative in somebody's opinion.
Yeah,
You know,
or innovative. I think innovative and creativity. You know, you could be creative because if you're going to improvise, you're being creative. Hopefully you're not just playing somebody's exact notes the way they played their solo, right? So when you improvise, you're being creative to a point.
Well, I think that even if you play well thought out arrangement, you could be creative. The way you phrase,
Right.
the way, you know. So I find this as you found, even playing music that is written like music of Beethoven or Bach, you can be creative with that. Just the way you tell the story, the way you interpret the composers. That's why we have many different pianists playing the same music. That's why we have many people listening to different versions of opera or different versions of symphonic things, because everybody, I mean, the notes are written, but they just guides for you to interpret the music the way the composer's written it and the way the artist sees it in his own eyes. So even if the text is written, I don't think it's wrong. I don't think it's right to say it's not being creative. You can be creative with the written text, just like you go to theater and people still perform Shakespeare or Ibsen or Chekhov, whatever it might be. The text is written, but the text is just the beginning of telling this story to the audience, to present the idea of the author. And it can be done in so many different ways. You know, if you think about Shakespeare, you know, Laurence Olivier is different from John Gielgud or somebody else. You know, and that's why we have the theater, the same roles. It can be Hamlet, but it can be 10 different ways of saying to be or not to be. You know, so I'm saying 10, but it could be hundreds.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I don't think we should be hang up on being original. That's the worst thing you can think of, the false originality, to do everything backwards or put accent. The accent should be on how beautiful the music is, you know. So to me, this conversation is very, very old, and people were saying in Beethoven's time and Tchaikovsky's time that everything is already used. We have exhausted all the harmonic possibilities, and then somebody comes along like Ravel or Debussy, something else opens up, Bartok, Stravinsky, other things opening up. People were saying, oh, there is no longer a possibility, we have
Right.
exhausted. And somebody counted, I remember reading Tchaikovsky time, Tchaikovsky was saying that there's the infinite possibilities that it can be done with music, with tones and chords.
Yeah.
So this I don't find those people who bring it up. I don't find them being creative. I find that this conversation is stale and old.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah.
Just
Yeah.
tell him he's not being creative. It's nothing
Well, he
new
thinks
about.
he is. He thinks he is. He thinks he's one of the greatest guitar players ever to live. If you
Well, he
watch
can
his
sing. That's,
videos,
it. That's again. We don't live in North Korea. In North Korea, they should probably tell him, "You play that way, or we shoot you." Put you in the jail. Here, you can do this, and you can say that other people are stupid, but we know better. If
yeah, yeah.
if
Well,
we study,
the kicker for me is when he says you don't go to Mozart or classical music for creativity, for creative inspiration. What you have to be an idiot to say something like that,
absolutely.
and then he sits back with his student, and his student tells us classical music is dead. It's a dead genre. It doesn't. There's nothing, and it's
Oh,
not
it's dead
true.
to him. If it's dead to him, then it's dead to him. I mean, he's free to be, as you say, he's free to be a complete idiot. That's okay. There's many people like this. So it's not that to many, many, many people. Many people. He just had to look around. There's many people still going to concert halls, and a beautiful music, classical music, is being performed all over the world. People are discovering. I bet you anything that when he says that, he doesn't really know Mozart. I bet you anything that we can find pieces of Mozart that he never even heard of. There are pieces of Mozart that sounds like Stravinsky or Prokofiev. That's how modern Mozart could be. There are some pieces that are so modern that you'd be completely surprised that Mozart has written them. It's shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, the classical music. I mean, I barely scratched the surface. But we talked about Friedrich Gulda, right?
You're talking
And
about geniuses. you
which
know.
and I was reading reviews on him because when I responded to him in my video talking about how Friedrich Gulda was considered to be by some a strict one of the what do they say, closest interpreters to the author's intended. The way he wrote it, Gulda was supposedly by some hailed as being a strict interpreter, and others not so. So because he when you listen to I listened to his recordings, he sounds completely different. He has a different way of playing it,
Oh, for
those
sure.
pieces. But But what I find interesting is you always have these different critics that talk about how so and so is the closest interpreter to the original writer's intent, and really we have no way of knowing that, right?
No, no, we can deduce something from the memories of contemporaries. We have stories that we can, and the tradition, of course, goes from one interpreter to the other, and there are some things you can assume that are close to original idea of a composer, but we don't know for sure. For example, about Bach, it's hard to say exactly how he meant, because his notation is very free. He did not write the nuances, forte, fortissimo things. He did not write the fingerings down. There are so many ways to play that. So there's no really way of saying exactly how you should be playing those things. So it's and I think some composers are very strict with how they want to hear their music. But some, I trust the Bach for example, was very, very open to different interpretations. Which is reminds me of there was this lady, a clavichord player, a very famous clavichord player, Wanda Landowska, who played lots of different music, but mostly Baroque music, mostly Bach. And she said to other musicians, "You play Bach your way, and I will play him his way." You know,
Interesting. Yeah.
so yeah, that's her famous saying: "You play your way, and I play his way."
Yeah. But
I don't know.
we were.
I don't put any importance on this kind of people. I think it's a waste of time to try to persuade them. Uh, to a certain extent, I can understand what they're saying about people repeating what they listen from records and stuff like this. There is a certain amount of truth in that. But how else are we going to learn if not follow the masters? Maybe right now we're in some kind of a period that is a little bit stagnant. We don't have really a great leaders per se. I happen to be lucky, old enough to be living in time where we had at the same time we had Monk, Miles, Mingus, Coltrane. Everybody was alive when I was a young musician, So we had this comets, this light that we could follow,
Right.
And right now we seem to be not have such strong leaders in our music.
Yeah, I
So
think
people
there's
are
still
into-
some. I think some of these guys get a bad rap, like Wynton, for example, Wynton Marsalis. So there's a lot of people that don't like him for one reason or another. Whether now, I don't think anybody in their right mind would say that he can't play the trumpet because he's
Nobody can
very
say that.
very talented, very. But I also think that he's one of those guys that did try to set up some kind of schooling and to pass on the tradition of that, which I think is very important. I think he's done a great thing there. But a lot of people will say that they criticize him and say that he's a gatekeeper. He wants you to learn the proper language and all this stuff, and that basically if you don't do it his way, it's not right. Okay, and so he gets kind of this, which I don't think is true. But if you can start off with all that his teaching, it doesn't mean you have to keep doing that. You
Well,
can take it and do something else with it. So what are your opinion on Wynton Marsalis, the
well,
Lincoln
my
Center and
thing,
everything?
I'm not very deep in everything he's preaching and saying. I find that, well, let's put it this way. I think before Wynton Marsalis uh, appeared to be on the scene or pushed to be on the scene, the jazz in the black community was in a very bad shape. The black musicians were not into jazz because they figured they cannot make money with this. Lots of talented musicians went into the funk, into
Hip
pop
hop.
music, all kind of things. So it was, in a way, it was good period for white musicians or even foreign musicians like Japanese or my good friend Russian trumpeter Valery Ponomarev joined Art Blakey because Art Blakey was in the tradition and there was not enough black musicians. Ted Jones and Lewis, they complained about not having enough black. They would like to have mixed or probably more a black dominated big band, but they couldn't find enough black musicians to wanted to sit in a big band and interpret that music. So they wound up with mostly white musicians. So the shape of jazz for I mean, like, if we want to look at the strictly from racial kind of point of view,
Sure.
which is always seems to be a question in America. So before Wynton came on the scene, it was a little bit sad, but after Wynton joined Art Blakey and was promoted as a new big star, lots of young black musicians understood they could make a living playing traditional jazz. So that was, I think, that's a biggest role that he had played. he had changed the music around. A lot of younger musicians, not only black, but mostly black, understood that if they follow tradition, they could make a living, and they could be, they could sign the contracts, and they could record, and they could be, they could be functioning musicians, which was not the case before. So that's, I think that's the most, in my eyes,
yeah, and I think
that's the biggest achievement that Wynton Marsalis did. He
yeah,
opened
he
the
also,
doors.
yeah, but I think he also made it known that this was an important part of their heritage. That this
Yes,
was,
absolutely. Yeah,
and I think that was a huge thing too. That this is part
absolutely.
of our heritage. We should
Yes.
celebrate it. We should learn it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yes,
But there was I think many people understood that, but yet they needed to make a living. They said, yeah, tradition is good, we understand, but it was mostly, funnily enough, even though it's mostly jazz was created in African American community, still it was mostly white people who wanted to play it, and black
yeah,
people
and,
turned their, and mostly white or Oriental audiences that wanted to support it. In the clubs, you will see mostly white people supporting that music. Even though it's a part of African American heritage. So he made it clear that this is part of Afro American heritage that needs to be supported. So that's, I think, his biggest achievement in that, and I support 100% him in that. So, like I said, I'm not very deeply into his teaching. He's been accused of racism in some way, being mostly prejudiced in hiring black musicians, stuff like this. So maybe it's so, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I don't have any first-hand experience.
I don't. Yeah, get into all that.
My experience with Wynton Marsalis is when I was playing with Ron Carter in New York. We played some Monk tunes, and he wanted to know the right changes to one of the tunes. So he gave me his number for me to reach him, to tell him the changes. And that's what I did, So, and the next time I tried to call him for some other reasons, the number has changed, So
Yeah.
I would run into him in some of the clubs once in a while, and sometimes he act a little bit arrogantly, and sometimes he'd be very friendly. So I don't have firsthand really experience. He's a bit arrogant, can be sometimes, but who hasn't? So I don't know. As far as being great jazz trumpeter, I don't think so. But great trumpeter, yes, he's excellent.
I'm impressed by him. He can play all the old New Orleans stuff. He can play the Freddie Hubbard stuff.
He's excellent trumpeter, and obviously is a good educator, and lots of young musicians attracted to him. So he's done very well for jazz music. I don't think, But as far as buying his records, when he was young, I bought some of his first record, then VSOP, then him and his brother joined. Of course, I was mostly interested in how the rhythm section played with Ron and Tony Williams and Herbie, So I was into that, so I wanted to hear that. I understood that there were young musicians that copied, at the time they copied Miles and Wayne Shorter and all that thing, and then he went all the way back to Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington. I find it all very healthy. I don't think there's any contradiction at all. Barry is like that too. He was very much a gatekeeper, teaching people the basics. Barry Harris,
Let's talk about the gatekeeper thing. Let's talk about the gatekeeper thing, Vladimir, because that's also something that's ridiculed, right?
No, I think the gates need to be kept.
I think it's a good thing.
Yes, of course, it's a good thing.
In a certain sense, does it?
But you can take it both ways. You can just get stuck in just playing things you learn from the records, or you can be creative with that. But the good basis for everything is important. And I think Barry, I don't know about Wynton, but Barry gave was giving that. He was giving the tools for you to work that. Then his mentality, whether you agree or not, that's a different thing, because he was against all the progressive things. Sometimes he would say one time there was a tribute to Cannonball and Miles, and he was in the rhythm section with Bob Crenshaw, and Al Foster, who was both very great friends of mine. And they were really shocked when people were interviewing Barry, and Barry said he didn't like either of them. He didn't like Cannonball, and he didn't like Miles, because they turned away from bebop and playing this modal music and whatever, he didn't like that. And he said that very openly in an interview, that he didn't care. And and both Crenshaw and Al Foster, they were shocked by that. That here we were playing it with this guy, supposed to be a tribute to the Miles and Campbell, and he says he doesn't even like them. And he's got the balls, to say that in an open interview for TV or whatever it was. So Barry was very strict in his beliefs, and maybe Winton is too. I don't know. I think maybe Winton is probably, compared to Barry, is more open to different things. It's hard for me to judge, because I was never really in the class of Barry Harris, and sometimes I watch the videos, and I find that he gave a lot of good tools as far as ear training and learning the vocabulary and stuff like this. He was giving good tools, and he's active jazz musician, jazz masters, in fact. So just to be in presence of jazz master, I think you can learn something.
Yeah. So did you see that whole? I think it was at Small's jam session. It was a big thing on YouTube a couple of months ago, where this guitar player got up with his acoustic guitar or whatever, and they basically asked him to leave because he was he was lousing the whole thing up. They're playing straight ahead jazz, and he's like fiddling around, playing all this that doesn't even.
I don't follow.
Yeah, so that was like a big thing on the internet, and then all these people got on there and said, "There's the gatekeepers again, not letting some guy play what he wants to play." And if you're not going to play with the band that's up there, the kind of straight ahead jazz that they're playing, and you're going to just try playing some crazy stuff that doesn't fit anything that they're doing up there, to me, you should be thrown off the stage. You should be told, but you have those other people out there that say, see, they're gatekeepers. They don't want anybody to have any creativity. This could be the greatest guitar player to ever play, and now he's doing something new that should be accepted. Where me, it's like, this is a guy that doesn't know what he's doing. And if he wants to do something new, he should look for a band or some context of that to play his creative music in, not at a jam session.
Well, of course, I'm very familiar, being for many years part of jam session. Some people they practice certain things at home, and then they go on the bandstand playing what they practiced without listening to anybody or participating. So that's the reason to not go to jam sessions, because people just don't play music together. So if he wants to play something creative, you can actually, believe it or not, you can actually play with other people together and be creative and play new things within the framework that is being played on the stage, within that tune. I mean, Charlie Parker was not playing anything crazy. He was playing completely new style within the style, playing with other musicians. He wanted to play with other musicians. It's just that he had his own style. But he played the same tunes and within the same framework that other people played. So that's being really creative. I think that's more difficult than playing just some outrageous stuff and blaming everybody else that they don't fit with you, because you're playing some new incredible things and they just not up to your crazy standard, your genius. Of course we had people like Ornette Coleman but he got his own band, and people, he didn't go too much to jam sessions that I know of. Of course,
yeah. Supposedly he went and got thrown out as a couple of them.
Yes. Well, That is also
Okay,
true.
well, it's probably
That is also
justified.
true. Yeah, that is also true. I read this account when he would come when someplace in California where Dexter and other people were playing, and he would come and play his crazy stuff, and they just would walk off the stage and leave him alone. You know.
Right.
So,
Which I think is justified. But here is what I always say. The gatekeepers didn't keep him from doing what he wanted to do. He
no,
found a way to do what he wanted
definitely
to do. He didn't cry about it that he got thrown off the stage like these wimps
no.
nowadays. They cry about it.
No, he didn't get thrown off the stage. They just walked off the stage and left him play.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
difference. That's the
yeah.
difference.
But
Nobody threw him. Nobody threw him out. They just didn't want to be participate because they
right.
figured he, they figured he's doing something different. Let him do that. You know.
Yeah. But he
Uh,
didn't go home and cry about it. He did. He went and
no.
figured out. He
Well,
found a
I
band and
don't know
found
if he,
people that he. Yeah.
I don't know if he was too happy about that. He probably
No,
wanted to
probably
play with
not.
them.
But hey,
You know,
it didn't stop him. Is what I'm saying.
but as a result, he got his own band, and he got his own people that followed him, and the rest is history, you know.
Right.
And if you liked him, you liked him. If you didn't like him, but the public apparently liked him because he stayed. When he came to New York, he stayed in five spots for like months and months and months, and he drew the audience because the club owner they didn't care if it was creative or uncreative. They want to see they want to see the public spend money on buying drinks. They don't care if you play Dixieland or completely outrageous stuff. As long as people coming, that's fine. You know, so that's the one capitalistic feature of the of the jazz club. If you draw people, you can play whatever the hell you want. You know, they don't mind. So yeah, but he had his own style. He tried to play. He tried to play some regular things like some Parker tunes or Embraceable You, but it didn't come off as Embraceable You that we know of. You know, so he's got his
Right.
own and but jam session is supposed to be, in my mind, supposed to be a musical meeting of people and try to create music together. You know, if somebody doesn't fit the situation, you cannot go and blame other people for, you know. But you know, we have internet now. People can express their opinions the way they want. They can
Right.
use code words. They can say most outrageous things, and nobody is censoring anybody. So yeah, luckily for me, I was not part of that jam session, so that's okay.
Yeah. But then what about the people that say like because you hear like you're playing that tune wrong, right? So you have some people that you're not playing the tune correctly. Like what's his name that would sit there uh, out in the audience and who who was it that would
Oh,
say you're playing
the
it wrong?
Mingus,
Ming. Right.
Mingus
So
say to
Charles
me,
Mingus, who was quite a creative guy. Actually, he was a really creative guy in my opinion. But he was
sure.
also a lover of tradition. But what about that whole criticism of you're playing the tune wrong, and then the other guy says, "No, I'm doing it my own way."
Well, what about it?
Or I
You
guess is
can,
there a right way and a wrong way? I mean, if you're not following the changes, obviously the
to
rest of the
me,
band is following.
yeah,
You're not playing it
to me,
right.
to me, there is right way and a wrong way. You cannot put it into words. You can, you can, you can do it your own way, and it's if it's interesting and better than original way. I think you have a license. You have a license to change it if you can come up with a better thing. I mean, if you play, let's say you play Gershwin tune. Let's say you play The Man I Love or Summertime. You're playing it in your own way. If you come up with better changes than Gershwin, then I say fine. You know, if you cannot do it any better, then you better learn. You better learn how Gershwin did it, because he was not a stupid man. There is lots of people that play Summertime don't even know how it went originally. I went to look at the score of Porgy and Bess and found out that most of the time people who play Summertime, they don't play correct changes for that tune, you know. And there's a way of making those changes easier to improvise on. because when he wrote that tune, it was not meant to be improvised on for uh, for endless kind of choruses and stuff like this. He wrote it for the opera, so you can adjust, and we do it. We, as a jazz musicians, we do it. We make it sometimes more palatable to play choruses. If there is some awkward things in the harmony, in original harmony, you kind of trying to smooth it and make it, trying to make it interesting. Sometimes you can add harmonies to make it more interesting, like Bill Evans, for example. I mean, everything Bill Evans did with standard tunes were better than original chords, because he was an equal genius to Cole Porter or Gershwin. He was on the same level with them. So he could say, I know how it went originally, but that's what I want to do with this tune, and it's going to be improvement on that tune. Yeah, that's a good word. If you play this tune, you improve on that. If you make it louder, then you shouldn't be doing it in your own way. You better do it an original way. Yeah. That's why I wanted to follow Lush Life as close to Strayhorn as I could, because I don't want to louse up that tune. If I can come up with better version of Lush Life, I better stick to Billy Strayhorn, because he was not a stupid person. Composer thinks, if he is a real composer, he sits down with the instrument or piece of paper and he thinks about how the tune should go. Should he turn left, right, reverse, forward? There's many possibilities. And if he is a great composer, he's got all these tools under his fingers. So I don't think it's right to disregard completely what the good composer has done. So, but if you can do better job, then please,
Right. Yeah.
If you think you're genius enough, Bill Evans could do it. Hank Jones, Art Tatum could do it. People like this, Eddie Wilson, Hank Jones, people like this, they could do it because they're swimming in the same waters. They understand what composers mean, and they know how to improve on that, or make it at least interesting in their own way.
Yeah.
So this kind of improvements and personal developments, I totally approve of, but not crazy.
Yeah, I find, but I also find like different arrangements can be very creative, and it doesn't have to be drastic arrangement changes. It can be just a little bit will give the song a different feel.
Absolutely.
And I watch. You're probably familiar with the. Was it Leonard Bernstein? He used to have those shows that he would do on classical music education that used to be on television back in the 50s, I think. And I was watching some of those episodes, and I found it very interesting how he would have the orchestra play at a certain tempo, and he would change it just a little bit, make it a little bit slower, and it would make the song, the whole composition sound completely different. It would give you a different feeling on how that song connected with you just on the tempo change that they did. Things like, I found that really fascinating, because you don't really think about that when it comes to, at least I don't, when it comes to jazz. It's like if you slow a tune down and arrange it just a little bit different, well, you can evoke a completely different emotion from doing that. That might be what you're trying to do with the tune.
I think Leonard Bernstein was a very creative person, creative as conductor, and he was excellent pianist. Something I didn't appreciate at the time, sometimes that in the early, when I was following jazz so much that that I didn't know enough about Leonard Bernstein. To me, he was just a big name in the classical music. Did I tell you the story when I met him?
I don't think so. I don't think you told me that one.
Yeah, I was coming out of this big hotel in Helsinki. I was on my way to airport to meet my wife. She was coming back from Paris or Italy or some other place. I was supposed to meet her at the airport. And Leonard Bernstein was conducting, one of the symphonic orchestras, could be Finnish, or maybe it was New York Symphonic Orchestra that came to Helsinki. So anyway, I come out of the door in the hotel, and a big limousine comes out, and Leonard Bernstein comes out with with lots of, in his tuxedo, and a bunch of flowers, beautiful flowers in his hand, and I said, of course I knew who he was, so I said, congratulations, I'm sorry I wasn't able to come to the concert. And we start talking. He said, well, what are you doing? I said, no, I'm just finished my gig, I'm a jazz pianist. Oh, so I said, I love jazz, would you like to go inside and have a drink with me? He was like inviting after the concert. I said, I'm very sorry, but I'm supposed to meet my girlfriend in the airport. Then he says, well, then you would want to present her with these flowers. And he gave me this bunch of flowers that he got. He said, you need it more than I do. So I take these flowers, and I went to who is my wife now, and I told her the story, and we had these flowers on the ceiling for a very long time. They were dried, so
That's funny.
that was
That's
my
cool.
short story of meeting Leonard Bernstein, and I was kicking myself not being able to accept his offer to have a drink and have conversation with him. And just imagine how stupid I was. I mean, I didn't even think at the time of possibly going to New York and possibly knowing him, and how many doors that could be open to me
Sure.
if I knew Bernstein. But I was stupid enough not to care about that, because all I cared about at that time was jazz music. I didn't care about knowing Bernstein.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know if I was even thinking about that, because I was, and he appreciated the fact. I'm sure I saw the sign of respect in his eyes, that I was turning him down, big maestro, to go meet my girlfriend. He appreciated that,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah, but you kind of come from a classical background yourself before you play jazz, right? So
definitely.
so the whole thing of now obviously jazz has its own language. You have to learn the jazz language. That's obviously completely different from classical music. But what musically, I know technique is very important that you can take from classical music, which you have incredible technique, Vladimir. I've never seen any incredible technique the way you play, and that can carry over to jazz. But what about the musical elements? Because you had the third string stuff that was, even Bill Evans took some of the classical stuff and kind of put it into jazz. So what are some of the musical things that you can creatively take from classical music and put into jazz? Or is there a way to explain that?
Well, almost anything concerning harmony, and of course the piano technique and everything you can bring to jazz, if that's your background. That doesn't mean that somebody like Monk or Errol Garner or somebody like this with their own technique wouldn't be valid. It's in a way completely different, but just as valid as somebody like Bill Evans that comes from, or Oscar Peterson that comes from classical background and have classical technique and virtuosity. In the case of Art Tatum or Peterson or Finis Newburn, a super virtuoso technique. So and Horace Silver, for example, doesn't have that kind of technique, yet it's just as valid as because the feeling in jazz, and swing and feeling in jazz is the main concern. Technique is of lesser concern, I feel. Sometimes even could be getting in the way of some. Well, I'm most qualified speaking about piano. So most of the people that play piano, particularly these days, at least have some education in the classical piano. Where maybe in the old days it was not always like this, but. From the early days, I believe that James P. Johnson and Fats Waller particularly had a classical technique, excellent classical technique. Fats Waller was excellent pianist. I'm sure he had the classical background and education because of the way he played so cleanly and would hit the notes exactly. So But it's not important. The important thing is whether you're coming from academic background or you are reached your own understanding of a theory. It doesn't matter because anybody who plays has got his own idea about the theory, how they can construct their music, whether it's come from academic background or they just build it in their own logic, so-called self-taught, people like Monk or somebody, who created a logical thing, whether he studied or didn't study. In his case, maybe it didn't matter so much, even though he didn't have the classical technique playing piano, but he had enough technique to bring his ideas clearly. So yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I'm not expressing myself clearly enough. So you ask, the question was, how do you bring the classical, theoretical classical things or practical classical things into jazz?
Yeah, musically. So I mean, I understand that jazz. If you're playing a standard, you're going to play. You have the changes you're going to have. You're going to arrange it the way you want. You have the feel, but like musically, are there notes that you might play that you'll pull from a classical idea and put in and play certain notes that somebody else wouldn't play if they didn't have the classical background? Different notes, different way, or feel even. I mean, because not necessarily not swinging. I'm just talking about the feel, or the choice of notes. Because I think Bill Evans is a great example. A lot of times I'll hear him start a tune that's a standard, and I won't even recognize hardly what he's playing, the tune, until it gets into it a little bit, because he's kind of like leaving out notes that are normally there. Or anyway, I'm not explaining it very well.
No, you're explaining it well enough. I understand, but it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult question to deal with, because I don't think you're doing it when you're playing it live, or you're playing it or recording. I don't think it's such a conscious process that you're deciding it at the same time you're playing what notes you should leave or what notes you should play. It comes absolutely without you thinking. You could think about it when you practice, when you try to organize your thought, but when you play, it's too late to think about it because the fingers are already doing their job. In fact, I think your thinking can get in the way of your creativity because I mean, at least in my process, I just play. I don't. Well, you can. Yeah, you can choose certain things when you're thinking about arranging tune, how you're going to play that. Even that can be completely different. The way you phrase, you can move this chord this way or that way, or you can play the melody accenting on second or third beat or fourth beat, whatever it is, or sometimes just omit certain parts of melody or add something to it in between. So this could be done when you're thinking about arranging tune. But when you play solo, I don't think you should be thinking about anything except let your mind free. Even the thinking about the form should be in the back of your head. Yeah, it should be more or less intuitive.
What about when you're playing the melody? Go ahead.
Melody should be, well, I believe melody, in the case, if it's a good melody, should be as close to the composer's intention. But you can add things and you can phrase it differently. So, if that's any help, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well.
Yeah, so like the head of the tune or whatever, the head of the tune, you might play the melody a little bit different, hold the note a little bit longer.
Every time is a bit different, Even though they could be set things, sometimes you need those set things in between so rhythm section know what you're going to do. Yeah, in my case, I don't have rehearsals and I don't have set arrangements. Many times I play tunes as they come. Certain things are repeated because of so many times you play them, and certain things is going to work if you play, like when you go from A part to the bridge, and sometimes you know you need to play certain phrase to get it smoothly from one part to another. You know, so maybe you don't change it every time to be creative. Maybe there are some things sometimes that you are happy to do exactly the same way. But in solos, you're absolutely free to do whatever you like to do, you know.
Right, right. Yeah.
But it's only 12 notes anyway, so I don't know what's the difference between classical music. The difference between classical music and jazz in this case is only the intention, the swing, the drive,
The
you
feel,
know,
yeah.
the rhythmic impetus, which is different from classical. Uh, but the notes are the same, the chords are the same, you know, and the instrumental technique is more or less the same. You can use classical technique in jazz; it's nothing wrong.
Right. What about the whole criticism of classical music of like we were talking about earlier? It's written out and it's insulting. If now I don't know from I've read some history of classical music and they're saying that there were periods where you could be more creative in classical music than you're allowed to be now. I don't know if that's the case, but like now they're saying that it's almost insulting if you try to go too far out of what the written
Yeah.
arrangement is, but I don't know if that's the case. Or I've heard people
What's
say
the
that.
Yeah, but what's the point if you play great music like Beethoven or Bach or whatever? What's the point of departing from something that a genius has written? What's the point of that? If you think you're so strong a musician, to depart from that, you should write your own music. I think if you feel that you are, you know. But people used to. The only way that we can say it was in some way more creative that people used to play their own cadences. They used to create like if they play Mozart concerto, even Gulda has done that. You know, if they play Mozart or Beethoven concerto, in the end there is there is a space where the piano player is doing whatever he's doing, and before the final part where orchestra comes in. So it's called cadenza. So Mozart had, and Beethoven too. They had their own written cadenzas, but sometimes piano players like Busoni and other great pianists of that period, they would either write their own cadenzas or improvise. I think Gulda
Interesting.
sometimes Gulda
Yeah.
would improvise that, taking the theme, the main theme of concerto, and then improvise around it. So
Interesting.
that was a
Yeah.
creative part. That was a creative part of the early classical music. The piano players were expected to improvise the cadenzas, whether the main text remained the same, the
Right.
cadenzas were personal. You know.
So it's almost like an improvisational section
Yes, it's
of it.
a kind of summation of your own thoughts about this concerto.
On that. Yeah.
Also showing most of the time showing the virtuosity and showing your composition skill, maybe, you know.
Right.
So
Or
that
how
was a
to.
part.
Yeah.
That was a part that piano player, a pianist could be rather. A pianist could be creative while playing classical music, you know, in the creative cadenzas, in the concerto. But this goes only for concertos. It's not playing for shorter forms, because there was no room to do that. Uh, but the whole conversation about being creative, people say that those composers that wrote down the music were actually in real life they were improvisers, and they only wrote the improvisations down because they were commissioned to do so. You know, they probably the music that they knew and could play would disappear if somebody did not commission it. Like church, for many times would be some noble uh, some very important part of the society, some nobility or would have the musician uh, under his salary to write certain things for the orchestra and piano. You know, they were commissioned to do things like this. Maybe otherwise they would just improvise and the music would just disappear, just like jazz musicians do. The music, So that being said, we are happy that they were commissioned to write this beautiful music down, and somebody spend the money to acquire this music so we can continue to hear that music. Otherwise, it would all disappear. But I'm sure most of the good composers were improvisers.
Yeah, and then also how they influenced the people that came after them to write their own things, right? So, like Bach inspired, the later composers to do their own thing or whatever.
Bach inspired everybody.
Yeah, or then you get to Beethoven, where he's playing almost like a heavy rock classical music, or very, very, intense. Yeah, so it's
He was an
interesting.
intense personality for sure.
Yeah, so there's definitely plenty to take from classical music for creativity. I mean, there's plenty to draw from.
Listen, my take is very simple. If you are a genius of the order of the monk, or Earl Garner or somebody like this, maybe you don't need so much education. But for ordinary people such as myself, we need to have all the studying that we could possibly have, all the help of piano technique and harmony, knowledge of harmony, and knowledge of rhythm, everything. So there is no end of how much you can study and learn. And from classical music, I think if people don't appreciate learning from classical music, I feel sorry for them, particularly for pianists. You need it, unless you are such a great such a great genius as Monk or Earl Garner or somebody like this, that is natural talent that perhaps even they have studied. As I probably told you, I met Monk's niece, and she said Monk always had Chopin music on his piano. So even Monk had to study with
Yeah,
all
so
his
even if
time.
he didn't play it, he listened to it. It still influenced him.
Well, he
His
played it, but he played it in his own way. But he did not play it publicly.
recorded, I guess I should say. Yeah,
He did not record it. He didn't play it publicly, but he played it at home to try to improve his technique. He knew that he needed that for his technique. Everybody needs it, and he knew that he needed that. And maybe he could learn, also from great composers to learn about forms and things like this. Even if you want to learn the form that you avoid, you want to do something different, you need to know what you're avoiding. You need to
right,
know what you're changing, in order to change it. So
right,
he knew
right.
that. Yeah. So even though he may not have been academically trained, he knew where the good music was. No question.
Even the can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Can you
heard
hear
you.
me?
Yeah. Not now. Now I don't hear you.
Now you hear me.
Now I hear you.
Okay. I was muting to try to keep the background noise down, but but even like quote unquote geniuses that, like, I always use Coltrane as an example because everybody says how much of a genius Coltrane was. But when you read about him, you understand he was not a child prodigy musician. When you read about him, he was a hard worker. I mean,
Oh,
he lived and breathed with that saxophone. He slept with that saxophone. He also studied he had formal lessons and formal music theory. And he became a quote unquote genius, not so much just, he developed it. He worked on it. And that to me, he's like the perfect example of pulling from everything, because he pulled from classical music. He said so himself. He pulled from formal education. He pulled from all the jazz people that he played with early on, and then he had something new to say with his music. But it
and
wasn't
he
just like he popped out of the bed, a
and
genius.
he well, boy,
No.
did he ever work hard? There's I don't think there's anybody who worked harder on music than Coltrane did.
Yeah.
But he studied also other cultures and other traditions, like Indian music and African music and stuff like this. He tried to get everything as much as possible, from all other possible things, and like he studied harp music to transfer it to saxophone, to extend the range, to go higher and lower than usual saxophone range. Now, if you ask me, I don't know if you needed to do that, but that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to extend, and he wanted to bring, consciously, he wanted to bring new things into jazz music. And he was, he was talented enough to do that because he worked very, very hard on that. And yet he
Yeah,
was humble enough, I understood, that ask for other people for advice or ask another people to show him something. Uh, and, so it was never ending process.
yeah, he's one of my favorites. Just, I mean, and I like all his stuff. I do like probably his earlier in mid stuff, but even like even when he was making Giant Steps, he was making traditional recordings. He
Giant
was
Steps is
very,
very, I
with
don't,
Giant Steps, I was considered to be a bit out there when it first came out. That it was a little bit more advanced or whatever, right? Then of course he would get
advanced is the
even.
right word, but it was not out there. It was a perfectly logical piece of music. In fact, those chords they're coming directly out of Slaninsky's book of thesaurus of musical patterns and things. So it came exactly from classical music. This pattern of giant steps, and this pattern of giant steps, the way harmony moves, already being used in popular music by Richard Rogers. If you listen to a tune called "Have You Met Miss Jones," the bridge to that tune, it's exactly like giant steps. It moves. It moves. La da 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 ding, da 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 da. It's already been used by Richard Rogers. So it's not out there. It's not nothing outrageous. It's just more. He took it as a technical etude, and he practiced on his horn and on the piano for like several years before he recorded that. I understand that he at least practiced it for at least a year before he dared to bring it to studio and record it. Poor Tommy Flanagan had to be confronted with that. I can't imagine how that could be. You know, Cedar was
Yeah,
the first pianist. Cedar was the first pianist to play that. You know that, right?
well, he was the first person to play what?
Cedar was the first pianist to record giant steps.
Oh, I didn't realize that. No, I did not realize that.
Yeah, Cedar was. They did the first session with giant steps and countdown and all these complicated tunes. Naima, all those things went down on the first recording, and it was so new that Cedar didn't dare. He refused to take a solo on
Oh, I
those
think I
changes.
did read that. I think I remember reading that.
So and then, well, Cedar told me that story, and then he had to go on the road, so they didn't finish the session. And then record company said that we need a piano solo there, and they needed to finish that session to have a release. So while Cedar was away, they went back to studio with Tommy Flanagan, and that was the final record that came out. However, later on they released this alternative takes and with
Yeah,
Cedar.
that's right. Yeah, I think I've. Yeah, yeah.
So he was the first one, and he practiced those. He practiced those tunes. He used to go by the train's house and practice with them those tunes. So he was, I believe, he was more familiar with those tunes than Tommy. Tommy had almost, he had a sight read these chords first time in the studio. Can you imagine? So yeah, so that was new. Coltrane knew, of course, his ways in and out. He could play backwards all those tunes, but the poor piano players, they had to deal with that on the spot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
just
everything
like
changed when he got.
just like
Uh,
Moment's Notice. You know, Curtis Fuller said everybody's playing now Moment's Notice, but when we had to play it, it was Moment's Notice.
Right. Yeah. And then once he gets to a Love Supreme, then he really starts to push the boundaries on a lot of the stuff that he was doing with the later Impulse stuff.
Well, that's another story because he had he had a regular group of people that he practiced and played regularly. So that's a different story. When he was playing, when he was recording jazz steps, there was a group musicians at that time around the same circle of musicians that played, but he didn't have the regular group to work at that time. Still, he was using the same great musicians like Wynton Kelly and Paul Chambers and all those guys, Arthur Taylor, so Philly Joe, all these people that were available at the time for record session and club dates and whatever. But then when he got his own band, he could do many things, because I understood from Rudy Van Gelder's interview that he used to come to the studio and do like one tune, many takes of one tune, and then he would leave with his group. And then they would come maybe in another week and do another tune. And they had all this time in the studio to experiment. And Bob Thiel, whoever was producer for the session, they would let him do that because they knew that he was selling a lot of records. So he was in a special position to do that kind of thing, to make an album like in the course of the month, maybe, when they had enough material to release the tune. Whereas today I have to go to the studio and whatever, if I feel good or feel bad or if I have stomach ache or toothache, doesn't matter, I got to do and finish the album, boom, boom, and we're ready. So we don't take a month to make an album these days. But Coltrane they could afford to do that because he was such a big name and such a respected leader so they could do things like this. Yeah, but as I said, Love Supreme and all those things, they had the time to adjust to each other. They had a regular group that were working group. They were playing week in, week out. They played all the clubs around the states and the world. So they were well adjusted to any kind of experiments, and they rehearsed. So yeah, it's different kind of thing.
So when it comes to jazz education today, and they still have jam sessions. We've talked to some of the younger musicians that they still have these jam sessions in New York and so forth. But there's definitely a lot more emphasis put on, I think, on writing your own tunes with your own friends that you went to school with, right? And that seems to be, which I like a lot of that stuff, but there's also criticism about that they're not taking. You have these different people criticize different things. They're too traditional. They're not taught creativity, and then you have people complaining that they're too creative and they're doing their own thing without learning the tradition. So you can't win. But what do you think as far as I know you're not against people writing new tunes, but as far as the importance of when you go to school, obviously you're taught a curriculum. So if you go to one of the schools in New York and they're going to teach you their curriculum, they're going to teach it to you the way they want to teach it to you. Now, if you're paying for the school, if you don't like the school, then you shouldn't be paying for it. But you don't have to continue within that box that they've put you, that they teach you. You can expand on that.
Oops.
if you're a creative person, right?
We lost you. We lost Matthew.
I don't know what happened there.
We lost you there for a minute.
Yeah, everything disappeared. You disappeared. Everything disappeared.
Everything went blank. Somebody's trying to control us.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't like us.
Doesn't like it.
Somebody somebody doesn't like our criticizing of
Yeah, but
school system.
yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, like you get criticisms both ways. There, people aren't learning the old stuff properly, or they don't know the tradition, and they're doing all new stuff. And you get other people that are saying they're not allowed to be creative. So I find it interesting that
Well, myself, I'm not involved so much in education,
right,
so so I really don't care one way or another. I had some students while I was in Japan, you know, because my drummer, he on his website he advertised that I also give some lessons. So as a result, I had to give some lessons, which to me is a pleasurable kind of thing because the people that I like as a student is the people who I want to play, and they just need help. You know, they need certain things to make their work a little bit easier. So they need some shortcuts. They need some things, some disciplines and things like this. So I do what I can, and because I had to start jazz music from scratch, from classical background to cross over to completely different, as we mentioned, completely different culture and things. So I can probably help more than some people who just played, who was born into that and just they start playing. They don't know what the hell they're doing. It's just sounds good and they don't care.
right,
So they don't have any system. They don't know what to do to get they playing better. You know. So in that way, I could help better than maybe some other people. You
right.
know.
Yeah. As far as formal education goes, I always think it's a good thing. It's just, but what I find interesting is some of these people that complain that the schools are gatekeepers. You're paying for the school. Nobody. It's not like a concentration camp you're being marched into where you paid for the school. If you don't like the school, you don't pay for it. And a lot of these people, you have to have some money to go to some of these schools, or you have to get a scholarship because some of these schools are very expensive to go to.
But it goes also both ways because of the student, because the schools are relying on the student paying for it, uh, as opposed to in my time with Soviet system, where they have very strict uh, very strict system of choosing the students for the school, because it was all state supported. It's not student support. So there was nothing, you sound great, there was none of that. Or we're going to teach you what you want to know, not what we think you should know. you know they were teaching people discipline. You take like a medicine. You go, if you're not well, you're going to take this your medicine, and you're going to like it because it's going to help you. You may not like to playing all these scales and exercises and things, but it will help you in the long run, and you have to trust the school to teach you the right things, instead of saying this is what I like, and you want, because I'm paying, you'll have to teach me that, and that's the only thing that I want to learn. So there's a little bit of that in school because they are relying on the students paying for that. So there's only so much you can say. But unfortunately, I'm not supporter of a socialist communist system. But that thing was very, very clear, that if you don't come up with the level, you'll be out of school.
Right.
And there are going to be 20 other students trying to come to your place, like particularly when it comes to playing the violin or playing the piano. There's going to be it's going to be dozens of equally talented people trying for your place. So you better keep it up, otherwise you're,
Yeah, and,
you
and
know.
they're
So
yeah, they're serious gatekeepers there, right? I mean, if you look at it from that point of view, if you don't play at a certain level, you're out. You don't even get a chance unless you can find your own way. Yeah,
as I said, I'm comparing it
yeah,
with when you're sick. You got to take your medicine even if it's bitter. You take your medicine. You may not like it, but it will help you get better.
right.
That's it.
Yep,
And if you respect your teachers, you respect otherwise, as you say, why you in the school if you don't respect teachers, you don't respect the system that teach you, then why are you there? Better
exactly.
to take private tutor that will, better take private teacher. Having said that, I just want to mention that as a pianist, for me, I think that I would not go, if I was starting out now playing jazz, I would not go to any jazz teachers. I would definitely go to classical teacher and learn everything about classical technique and classical,
Really?
and yeah, absolutely, and then would try to teach myself jazz the way I hear it. But I would try to get as much education and technique under fingers, and there's no other way around. You got to go classical way, because that will give you a basis for anything you do. Teach the right way. So yeah, so I would not go to jazz teacher per se. I would I would try to get as much theory and technique under fingers as possible, um, and then to try to do a jazz. Maybe take some private lessons, particularly with jazz masters. If you happen to be in an area where you have jazz musicians, then and you feel you have a talent for jazz music in particular, then just hanging out with jazz musicians, go to sessions and listen to the live musicians. That would help you to assimilate the jazz feeling. But the knowledge and technique, I think you should get from classical music. There's no question in my mind. Certainly helped me.
Yeah, that's
And helped
interesting.
you.
And I think some of the schooling is also prestige that you got your degree, master's degree in whatever from this school, right? The well-known school, and then you put that on your resume and you put that on your website. I went to here and got this and got that. A lot of people think that's important for marketing themselves and or getting the opening doors for them, things like that. Which, I don't know how much. You have a lot of people going to these schools. So how many people, you're gonna have to stand out in order to be recognized, or you're gonna have to have good connections with people, right?
I wouldn't know.
But
I think the only thing schools are going for and being a graduate of school is to teach other people. You have a diploma or whatever,
right,
doctorate, whatever is enable you to join another educational system, and like I don't have papers to teach jazz music, so I'm not part of any curriculum
right.
really. Maybe because of that, but uh, I don't find it's I don't find it's particularly in jazz. I don't find it's important to have a degree. You get your degree by playing.
Yeah, and as Charles Chen pointed out when we spoke to him last time, he's like, if you want to be in education, then you have to have a degree so
Exactly.
that you can,
Yeah.
have the paper and whatever.
Yeah.
But
Well, he's a good example of he's like a academic trained uh, person. So yeah, but you can be a good jazz musician and still be academic trained. I don't know. I don't know where all these people that graduated where they're going to go with that with those degrees, other than go teach other people. I don't really see. Um, yeah, it's difficult for me to see the future. In New York, there are only so many clubs, and there are so many musicians coming out of schools, and they're ready to play for nothing.
yeah,
And people today are sponsoring their own records, and they're selling the records on the gigs. I don't see the big future. I mean, for young people, that's all right. But then when you reach middle age, and if you have family, and where's the income, unless you're teaching?
right. That's a problem. Well, hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, there's going to be, more places that will have jazz. Maybe I don't know that. I do think there might be a positive thing coming from this whole AI thing is that people are going to want to go out and see real people playing music. So I think
Let's
that
hope.
that's a good thing. I think that will
Let's
be
hope so.
yeah.
Let's hope so. I intend to make many mistakes, so
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not going to
I don't want to AI you.
I'm not going to be confused with AI.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, otherwise the deal is very strange. Everything, particularly if you live in Manhattan or any big cities, everything is going up in price, and the payment for jazz musicians by only going down.
Yeah.
In my day, when I came to New York, $100 was a regular fee for the gig in a club. Sometimes it would be a little bit more. Sometimes it could be 75. We didn't go under. At least I didn't go under 75. I remember Angry Squire was the place that paid $75. It's considered to be not so, you know. So, but you had low prices, you know. My rent was 300, you know. Or where can you have rent in Manhattan now for $300, you know? And yet, if you go to play smalls, a place like this, they pay like $50 or $60 or whatever, you know, depending on how much audience you draw. I don't think there is even necessarily a set fee for any band. It's just depending on how many people you draw, how many tickets they sell. So, you know, and you can play in those clubs like Smalls or whatever the clubs are. You can play maybe once or twice a month, even if you're successful.
Yeah.
You can do like 2 days, and then the next time it will be like in a 3 or 4 months. How you can survive in New York for this money unless you already have a good family, you know, to support you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see that.
Yeah, musicians always get, you know, whether it's jazz or anything else, they're always lowballed. They don't want to pay anything. I mean, I run the same thing when we do our little acoustic thing over at the Irish pub, right? Oh, you know, I'm like, so now, I got to fight to get $100 a person. So we just have 3 of us, and now I'm like, you know what? I'm not playing for less than 100. It's not worth me carrying all of my crap out there, and for less than $100. And $100 is nothing. It's nothing.
Today is nothing. In those days, there were a lot.
Yeah, not now.
In those days, when you get $100 in your hand, that was something.
Right now,
Because
$100, nothing.
You could, in New York at those days, you could have a dinner for $5 was okay, you know. So you know the rent. If you're really well off, you could have a rent like for 500.
Yeah, I went to the Irish pub. I got a fish and chips, some pretzels, and 1 beer. It was $40. $40. That's $40. That's I mean, so you know, I'm paying $40 for a meal, and they don't, you know, they don't want to pay you $100 to come and play for 3 hours. You know, it's like no.
They don't even want to pay. They don't even want to pay that.
Yeah, it's you know, that's.
You know, they want. Yeah, we have the same problem here. When it comes to the payment, everybody starts shaking hands and saying, "Oh, I don't know. There's not, you know." Yeah, well.
So I do it all up front. Everything is up front. It's just like it's $100 a guy, $300. That's you know the minimum we're playing for. It's like.
Yeah, well, as an art form, jazz is fantastic. As occupation, it's terrible. You know, unless you happen to be in a selective group of people like Marsalis and their company, you know, he's probably a millionaire. So you know, so
yeah.
So selected group of people, they can make a good living at that, but the rest of people, they must have some other ways of income.
Yeah,
if you want to play jazz.
Yeah, it's tough.
But while you're young, it's all nice.
Yeah, hopefully you can build up enough of a reputation to make more money when you're hopefully.
Yeah. Well, you know, when they're older, it's a little bit more difficult, and new guys keep coming up, and they're all technically equipped, and most of the time they can do most of the things you do even better. So what are you going to do with that? They're coming out of school, they have all the technique, they have knowledge, and they're ready to blow you off the stage.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like I was when I came to New York, I was ready to take on anybody.
Yeah.
They hated me seeing me coming out. They knew I was going to blow them out.
Yeah.
When they feel secure, and they've done it for many decades, and then somebody comes in, you know, ready to blow them out. They have all this energy and impetus, and say, oh, yeah, I'm gonna get this guy. Say, oh, you know, so it becomes like a gladiator. They have to defend their place, which is a beautiful part of a jazz music. You have to defend your place in music while you're there. You just show me why you survived so many decades. Play something. Otherwise, get off the take off the piano stool. Let me play.
Right. Yeah.
Luckily, I'm not there anymore, so I can do whatever I do in
Yeah.
peace.
Exactly.
Nobody's challenging me here.
Right.
No challenge here. Maybe it's bad. Maybe I would be even more stimulated if I was in an environment where there's like three or four guys ready to kick my ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it would be better.
Well, you're lucky. You got a lot of new releases coming out, so you got a lot of new.
Yeah, I'm very
So
lucky.
that's really
I'm
cool.
very lucky. It's incredible people, but most importantly, people still keep buying my records, like you did.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yep.
much.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll be buying the new ones.
So,
The new ones when they come out. The vinyl, I think, on the Soul Eyes is out. I think April. It says so. When that comes out, I'll order that. Yeah, I'll do a review of that one.
well, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to have record company behind me.
Yeah.
I don't need to do anything. Even the guys who record with me, the Swedish guys, for instance, they say they forgot when it was already time when you go to studio and you're being paid.
Right. Yeah.
Because they record with people, they pay you out of their own pockets to record. For the most part, no record companies like in Sweden want to hear about recording straight ahead jazz and paying for it.
Wow.
Doesn't happen.
That's terrible.
People are recording on their own budget and then selling it on the gigs. That's the deal. And I think Finland is the same thing. I don't know if there is any company that releasing new. Well, maybe some states sponsored things when they demand you to be. I have a good guy, the best bass player that I play with from time to time, and he's got a band, and so there was a record label, and he was offering them like this band who play straight ahead stuff, and they say, we don't do covers, we only record original things. So this is like if you play Charlie Parker or you play Coltrane, you are doing cover.
Right. Right.
So so that's the thing.
Yeah. I wonder if there's royalty things too that they don't want to. With an original tune, you can own the publishing rights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And with some of the other ones that are owned by other companies, you got to pay royalties. They don't want to pay it.
Oh, don't start me on that. You have so many things that people want to record the original tunes just because they are original and they get the publishing rights and everything, because that's not the reason to record. That's not the reason to compose or record your own tunes. If the tunes are good, then yes,
Yeah.
that's not the reason. That's why we have so many different guys writing original tunes that nobody else playing, except even they don't keep playing. Like when Monk composed some tunes, he played them all his life. He had this policy. He had this mentality. He said, you keep playing until public accept it. If they don't accept it at first, you just keep playing and playing and playing until they will like it finally. But these guys, they record something for one session, and the next week they're playing something different. They don't. I asked him, I said, what happened to these tunes? He said, oh God, we got all the new tunes. I said, what happened to the tunes you wrote last time? They're already gone. They're in a waste basket. If it's a good tune, you want to keep playing it, right?
Yeah,
so make it popular. Yeah, so that's my thing. If I should write a tune that is really good, I would keep playing it. And now, to conclude this conversation about playing the same old tired things, I talked to Flanagan about that one time. He said, "I see, Tommy, you keep playing these tunes," and he says, "I keep playing them again and again until I get it right." So that's the answer I offer. I keep playing those tunes until I get them right.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds very good.
Yeah. But on any given night you're playing live, you might you might express yourself a little bit different depending on how you feel, right? I mean, you
And,
show up, or whether not necessarily health wise, but just mentally wise on how you're gonna play that night, right?
well,
More
I'm
aggressive,
sorry
or
you didn't. I'm sorry you didn't come more to my gigs, but I think you got the idea. Nobody knows what I'm gonna play. The guys that play with me, they have no idea what I'm going to play. They just have to follow. I have my antenna towards the audience. I'm trying to feel out what the public would feel at certain period of time. So I'll change it if I don't like. If I think the tune doesn't go well, I'll change the feeling and just try something different that will get them. So the people that play with me, I don't do sets, like list of tunes that I'm going to do. They have to be ready. I found a good bass player. I mean, this guy is very good that you heard me, but I find on the road I didn't know him before. This guy plays everything, and he's so enthusiastic. He came up with every album that I recorded. He wanted me autograph every. He came with the big stock of my records. He's got every record I recorded. Can you believe that? I cannot
yeah, that's awesome.
tell him that over here when I play with musicians that never have any of my records. But in Japan they do. Guys that play with me, they got all my records.
Yeah,
They know my tunes.
yeah. The one thing I noticed about those guys too is they seem to be very joyful. They were having a very good time playing. You could just
Sure.
tell they had smiles on their faces. They were just they. It was yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's no bitterness. In Japanese people, they love what they're doing. Yeah, they love playing jazz. I don't know why is that, because there is a different kind of feeling in a society. There is no hard competition like this in New York, boy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
There is
Even
a
though there's a
yeah.
lot of people playing it, like in any given night, when I looked around. There's like 30 or 40 different jazz bands playing throughout this whole
Are you
city.
kidding? Of course. Yeah.
A lot.
In Yokohama alone there are 17
Yeah,
clubs.
I didn't even get there. That was on my list. I didn't have time. That's why I got to go back. I got to go back again.
Yeah.
I couldn't get to
No,
everything.
Japan is fantastic. The the problem is to sit on the plane for 14 hours.
That was tough going over. I had to keep
That's a
getting up.
beach. Yeah, me too. That's a and the seats are getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah,
And going there, I had, like you, I had the whole space to myself. I could stretch out. But this time when I was coming back, I had two more guys, and one guy next to me is a big
I
guy.
hate that. They're rubbing up against you.
What can you do? Yeah, elbow.
It's terrible.
What can you do?
Yep. Well, I hope I can go
Well,
back.
we need to get business class. That's all I say.
I wish
They
I could
need to pay
afford it.
business. No, somebody needs to pay, not me.
Yeah, exactly. If you're finding the pay for you, let's see if they'll fly me over there too.
Well, my
Be
record
your
company,
publicist.
I mean, he was Tetsuo, Venus. They were ready to help me to upgrade me, but there were no seats available. He was going to help to upgrade me to business, because this time I was recovering. So I told them I need especially lots of rest. So he was willing to come with some cash, but there was no seats available
Yeah,
in
mine was
business.
full too going over.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Somebody is paying. Somebody has enough money to pay for the business class.
Yeah.
Uh, Business class from Helsinki to Tokyo cost 4,500 euro. That's more than $5,000. A lot more. Maybe even almost $6
Yeah, that's
is
outrageous.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
I don't know who pays that. Maybe some company, some business company.
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, I would like to go back next year. Maybe we'll go back again next year, depending on who knows with all these wars going on and all this
Oh,
crap now. With the oil and this and that. Who knows if we're going to be able to afford
yeah.
to go anywhere next year?
We're lucky. We were able to do it this
Yeah,
year.
exactly. Yeah, it was a wonderful trip.
Yeah, I know
Very
you enjoyed it.
memorable.
I could see that.
Yeah. All right, Vladimir. Well, we will talk
We're up.
again for sure. And when
Yes.
I get the new record, I'll do a review of it, and then we'll do it. We'll talk again.
Well, so happy to. I was so happy to hang out with you in Tokyo, man. It was fantastic.
We got to go to your favorite
Cafe.
little coffee shop there,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
enjoyed.
I love it. Love this little thing. Uh, uh, it's incredible. I haven't been there in all this time. Almost 2 years. I come there. They immediately remember me and remembered me what I ordered
Yeah,
right away. She said, "Double macchiato." I said, "Yes, thank you."
yeah. I get the sense there.
Japanese.
I get the sense there that they pay attention to detail, and they're more formal about things than we are.
Very much so.
Yes,
Yeah.
which I appreciated. It was.
Yes. Oh, don't talk to me about Japanese
Yeah.
service. I mean, I was expecting people bowing to me when I come back to Finland, and people just disregard you completely. Like you don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a cultural shock to come from Japan back to Europe.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like you don't really matter that much. In Japan, they make you feel important when you come to the restaurant or any club or anybody. The customer is the king.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a bit different over here.
yeah. It is. Yeah, here too. All right, Vladimir.
Anyway,
Well, yeah.
man, nice to talk.
Was
Nice talking to you, and enjoy. You have all this music to
I
listen
know I
to.
got to get
I'm
caught
really,
up.
I'm really envious.
Yeah,
I'm really envious that you haven't heard those records. You're gonna hear them for the first time. That's
yeah.
incredible.
Some of them. Yeah,
You have great system to play it
yeah,
on.
yeah,
I mean, I'm very envious.
yeah. I'm excited. All right.
Let me know what you think about Soul Eyes.
Well, I will.
One of this, one of these days, my wife and I going to sit down and listen to it.
Yeah, you should.
I have previous record that I recorded with this bass player that I haven't opened yet either.
Oh, really?
We recorded this 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I have that.
Which one is
I
that
have
one?
that.
You talking
Oh,
about?
I'll show you. Just a minute. Okay.
I don't reckon. What's the name of that one?
Um, it's all in Japanese. There is a picture of us.
Yeah, I don't
Can you see
recognize
that?
that one.
No, it's a new one. We recorded it in city city of Tayama. It's called Wings of Song.
I'm gonna have to look up that.
Yes,
I might have to go to eBay to get one. Wings of Song.
well, I'm sure you can get it from him. I think he sells it.
Who is it?
Um,
Or if you email it to me so I can find it.
yeah, but his name, I will email it to you. Yeah, it's a it's a good bass player. I play with him when we go to Kanazawa,
Is it a live recording?
Tayama. No, well, we recorded it. Well, you can say it's live because we recorded this in a cafe, but
Okay.
there is no audience.
Okay.
Like yeah. So it was not in studio. It was in a cafe. Friend of his recorded it. The story was his mother, who was a pianist, died, and she left this piano, and he wanted me to record some of the tunes. It's from her heritage. So he made the classical tunes, kind of like arrangement for the jazz trio, and the rest are just jazz tunes, you know. So some tunes are from his mother, and so and other tunes are like "This I Dig of You," uh, "Sunny Side of the Street." He wanted to do that. "Beautiful Friendship," "When Sunny Gets Blue," I guess, you know, and the rest is some Ciora,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Lee Morgan,
Good morning.
uh, and the rest is some classical tunes that his mother played, and he made like a trio arrangement of them.
Oh,
You know,
interesting.
so
All right.
so he's a very good bass player, and he's always organizing concerts in his area, and he's involved very much in education. He's got a big band, and he's teaching a lot of young musicians. He's got solid jazz roots. You know, I played long time ago. When was it? 2013, I think. First time I was doing tour of a whole Japan, and when I came to that area, him and the drummer. Wow, I was so surprised. They could play all my tunes and sound great. The rhythm section, I was like, wow, you know, because I played with different musicians. They were all good, but some are better than others, and they were really good. And so we kept in touch all those years, you know. And when in Kanazawa they have very good festival. I played there 4 or 5 times. Incredible for they're saying for foreign musicians to be so many times in a row. And there is a good club that you should have been, because every time I played that club in Kanazawa, it's fantastic feeling. I don't know what is about this place. I have never played badly in that place, and it's always audience sit right near you, and it's always such a fantastic feeling. They give you, even before you start playing, they give you so much already, the desire to do your best. Now, I don't know what's about that place. Something, you know. I would go really out of my way to play again at that place. Something is. Well, Kanazawa, it's very nice place, and it's a great area for fish, for sushi. It's wonderful. It's wonderful fish area. So the sushi there is first class. Even for the people who come from Tokyo or Osaka or any other place, they all say it's famous for the fish.
Yeah, that sounds like a good. Yeah, I gotta make a list. I got more stuff to see. We'll see if I can get
Oh,
over there
absolutely.
again.
You need to get out of
Much.
Tokyo and go to these other places.
Yeah, yeah,
The Japan is so big, it's so and it's so wonderful to visit all the different places that you've never been before. You know,
yeah.
and surprisingly, so many people around Japan love jazz, and you know, and just incredible. One time I was playing at the Kobe, which is not far from Osaka, and we're playing at this club, and this lady, a piano teacher, she heard me on radio in completely different city, way out. She heard me that morning, and she took a plane to catch me.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. Yeah,
I mean, stories like this,
yeah.
when you. And did Rebecca tell you as soon as she landed, she went to some place to have a meal in some restaurant? Did she tell you that?
Where they asked her for her autograph and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny. That was a great. Oh, you're the daughter of Vladimir Shafranov. Let me get signed my. Yeah,
She thought she was being in some kind of film,
that's funny.
you know.
Yeah.